Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber, and today, once again, I must say, when these false flag operations happen, Ole, we come to you, author Ole Dammegard of lightonconspiracies.com, coming to us from Spain. Ole, we come to you after each of these false flag operations. Obviously, this is the one after the famous Friday the 13th. We know that they even have a special name for the fear associated with Friday the 13th. It has a special name in psychology. So this thing is all front loaded. I just want to read briefly from one of our last interviews where we state Ole Dammegard concludes that there may be an organized intelligence operation groups that carries out false flag operations employing crisis actors using a methodology very much like film crews at a movie set. This false flag group attempts to drive global policy using the now outdated formula problem plus reaction equals solution. So, do you think that is it your finding that once again we have this kind of traveling roadshow in the Paris Friday the 13th operations?
I tell you, Alfred, I believe that it's very, very important to, before you have any kind of reaction at all to whether it's the real thing or a false flag or whatever it is, to really look at the facts, look at what actually happened, check the timeline, check what was happening before, after, was there any signs of people knowing before it happened, who is it blamed on, who benefits, and so on, before we even start about, is it a false flag or is it not? Because nowadays, I mean, some years ago, I spent 30 years looking into these type of things, but I think it was up until the Boston bombing, even the term false flag operation was totally unknown to most people. And now it's by many people so known that as soon as something happened, they scream false flag, false flag, false flag. Yet again, and I tell you, at this point in history, I mean, there's so many false flag operations that it's unreal. It's almost laughable because it's on a rate that is totally incredible. But so I always try to, when things like this happen, to take a step back, take a deep breath, not react emotionally, and then start seeing exactly what happened and pick it apart, see are there any signs of a black operations and so on. And I tell you folks, this once again, here we come, the whole thing is smelling a long, long way of a totally set operation. What you were talking about, and what we talked about in several different interviews before, is that it seems like now that the power structure, the group of people or whatever it is that is behind the so-called New World Order, they have like a roadshow that goes almost global in the Western world, doing false flag operations. A small group consisting of directors, crisis actors, people that are very much into special effects, good on smoke bombs, people that are very good with explosives, that have makeup skills, military advisors, marketing agencies involved, also coming up with logos and the whole follow up to these events with logos, slogans, they've almost got the jingles as well, color coordination things, and how to carry out a total psyop as well combined to these things. But behind the whole thing is this very, very dark and sinister agenda that goes into very, very dark things like satanic rituals, satanic offerings, Freemasonry symbols, numerology, and so on. And one of the things that keeps coming back is that they handpick the date when these things happen, the day, the date, the numerology around the dates, the location. Very often, the location itself is maybe where they used to burn witches, or where some awful thing happened, or whatever. So there's so many different areas to look at, and I would very much like, if it's okay with you, that we tonight, Alfred, go through it, the whole thing, step by step by step, to just see that if what I claim is the truth, if it makes sense or not.
Perfect. I think that approach is just excellent. Do an empirically based approach.
Because the thing is that if what we're being told happened, if that is the truth, then this is absolutely horrendous, awful, awful. A lot of people got killed, a lot of people got injured, and done by ISIS, and therefore it justifies the bombing of Syria and so on. At least that is what the official version wants us to think is right and honorable to do. I strongly tend to absolutely disagree to this, and also let's look exactly at what happened. So if I give you the official story, because I think many people are not really aware of what happened. It is said that on Friday the 13th, that there was a series of terror events in central Paris. Around 9:20 in the evening, a first explosion, or it was actually two explosions, hit the Stade de France, a football stadium, a soccer stadium in central Paris. And it is said that there were 2 or 3 deaths confirmed there. The official story said that there were suicide bombers that tried to get in there to the stadium. There was a big soccer game between France and Germany. And unfortunately, they had forgotten to get tickets, so they couldn't get in, and they were turned away by the security checkpoint outside the stadium. So for some reason, they got very upset and then decided to blow themselves up. So 2 people are said to have blown themselves up there outside the stadium. Then about 5 minutes later, there was a shooting at 2 small cafes, one called Les Carillons and the other one Les Petites Camboges. Then, and 4 minutes later, there was another shooting in the area of Avenue de République, where there was a pizzeria called Casa Nostra, which is another name for the mob. It's a pizzeria, and they said 5 people got killed there. And then at 9:38 p.m., there was a shooting outside Le Belle Equipe bar, all of them very closely together, and in an area that is very popular, very, especially among young people, beautiful small cafes, beautiful alleys, very nice area. And then at 9:43, there's said to have been an explosion at a place called Comptoir Voltaire, where one person is said to have been killed. Then at 9:49, 4 gunmen is said to have stormed a place, a theater place or a music place called Bataclan. And they went in there, these 4 people, these 4 gunmen, and started shooting. It is said that they shot with automatic weapons for 10 to 15 minutes in there. They killed about 80 people and then took the rest as hostage. Then when the police entered, it is said that the gunmen decided to blow themselves up because they were armed as suicide bombers, so they blew themselves up in there. And then there are reports of at 10 p.m. Shooting on Boulevard Marchand, I'm not sure how that is pronounced, but Boulevard Beaumarchais, I think, where another possible 4 deaths are reported. So an absolute horrific event in very few minutes. I mean, within 40 minutes, all of this happened. Also, there were at the Bataclan, it took longer. The siege where they had kept the hostage were about 2 hours, it said, where the police was outside, and then they decided to blow themselves up. So that's the official version. And I want to say, if what we're being told is true, then I totally want to approach this with deep respect for the families of the victims and so on. I do think, though, that it's very important that we look at the evidence and question if what we are being told is really the truth. So, if we start at the stadium, the official story is being pumped out all over the place. So I don't think there's a need for me to repeat that it was ISIS and all of these things. I would say, let's look at the things that does not match up with the official story and see if they have any foundation and so on. Okay, so at the soccer stadium, at the football stadium, there was a match, a football match going on between France and Germany. And the French president, François Hollande, was there together with his colleague from Germany. If you want to carry out a false flag operation, one of the things you want to is to affect as many people as possible, because what you're trying to do by creating problem, reaction, solution, the thing you want to is get an emotional reaction from as many people as possible, so that they don't use their brain, but just go into total emotion, outcry, panic, fear, and all of these things, and then turn towards the people who they do not understand were behind the problem in the first place, saying, please help us, we're under attack. And then they, the perpetrators really, behind the whole thing, will serve you the solution, problem, reaction, solution. And this solution, every single time you have a false flag nowadays, is the same result. The solution is more and more militarized super cops, robocops, weapons everywhere, martial law, surveillance cameras, totally unjust wars, all of this based on these false flag operations, which are really total lies. So this is why we so have to pick them apart, pull them apart, and see what the truth is, because maybe they are taking us for a massive ride and just totally manipulating us into a corner. I would say this is what they're trying to, at this moment, create this massive crescendo of absolute chaos and mayhem and terrorist attacks and so on, for us to crumble down in a corner and just say, oh, I can't take it anymore, I can't take it more. And that it's at that point where they will go in and make a total takeover into what they call the New World Order, which is a very, very dark and sinister future if that goes through. Total control on all levels. And so I really think this is an incredible opportunity for us to wake up, because if we don't, well, future not bright. Anyway, so we look at what happened at that stadium, and it's like, you know, when you're at a soccer game or a big game like that, everybody's on the inside. No one is on the outside. And the game was being played, everything was fine, and then suddenly, boom, boom, 2 major explosions with a few minutes apart. And the only thing is that you see people, the players are looking up a little bit, and then after a while, they say that, we have terrorist attacks here, we have to shut down the game and everybody. So instead of being evacuated out, everybody's kept inside the stadium, meaning no one goes out to see anything. So it's only by being told that 2 explosions have gone on, from the sound of it, that people know for sure that this is what happened. Because on the outside, there's absolutely no evidence or signs of explosions at all. You should have like an episode. I mean, when you blow yourself up, it is quite a grisly scene, I would suggest. You know, there ought to be blood and body parts and all of these things all over the place. Nothing at all. As far as I've seen, no photos, nothing. And also nowadays, especially in the States, you have on the big games, and even on while the big teams are practicing and so on, you have crowd noise added through the PA system. You can see that on basketball games and baseball games and rugby. These type of games, you've got the whole crowd going, and you can see a lot of it is going out through the PA system, not being real. I know there's quite a lot of discussions in the US about, is this right or wrong to really do these things? But that is what is being done on quite a big scale. So my question is, since there are no signs of these explosions, is it possible that the explosions everyone heard was actually coming out through the PA system, just as a sound? Well, what happened then was that just like when George W., when he heard about 9/11, when he was informed by his advisor, he just sat very calmly, waited, listening to these school children reading a book about a small goat or whatever it was, not reacting. I mean, here the US was on the first or the biggest major terrorist attack officially ever. So I would say, as a president, it would have been a good idea to at least react. Here we look at Francois Hollande. His advisor whispers in his ears. Does he look freaked out, afraid, stressed? Absolutely not. Very calm. He receives the notice of it, and then he's guided out with his colleague very calmly. There's no bodyguards jumping, trying to take him out, bring him out from the stadium. They just lead him out very quietly, and then they take him up to the booth where the commentators are. I mean, big glass windows, totally open, so that everybody in the stadium could see him, which I would say is absolutely against all security rules. But at the same time, if you want the crowd to make sure that the crowd actually sees you, that the president is here and under attack, it's a good way to make him visible. But also, one of the things that keeps occurring when it's a false flag is that the mobile network and the phone network or the radio network in that area is shut down until so that the perpetrators can make sure that the story that gets out is their version, not the real truth. So it's shut down for a while. Then when everything is under control, it's put back on. It happened at 9/11. It happened in Dealey Plaza, actually, in 1963. It happened at so many of these different, the Madrid bombings, the London bombings, and so on, that this exact thing happened. And I've been told from people at the stadium that suddenly the mobile phones didn't work while this was going on, at least in the beginning, the early stages of this. Then everything went back to normal. So then also, if you have two suicide bombers that have just blown themselves up outside the stadium, what would be the correct way to deal with the situation? Is it to block the whole crowd inside in the stadium? I mean, who knows? There could have been 14 other suicide bombers on the inside. Then that could have made a total massacre when you just blocked the exits. But here, that was what they decided, and they just held them locked in there for quite a while. Then, when you hear the way the news was spread all over the world, often when there's these black ops, you have sort of celebrities that by chance happen to be there or so on to, well, give it more credibility, but also more stardust and more amplifying the horror of the event. And here we have, this time it was Geraldo Rivera's daughter Simone that was, first they said she was at the concert hall, the theater Bataclan, but then Geraldo suddenly started talking about that she was inside the stadium instead when this whole thing. And when he talks about her, he talks about 3 explosions. There were only 2. He also said they started to leave the stadium, which they were not allowed to. And he said that they saw SWAT teams and emergency crews coming in. But when you check out the footage and the video films of this whole thing, there are no SWAT team, no emergency, no nothing. She also said that they saw crowds pouring out from one exit and there was absolute chaos. When you look at the official footage, absolute no chaos, absolutely no crowds pouring out and so on. So I have to put a major question mark around that. Also, Fox News is one of the 5 networks that reported from 9/11, where all of the people on a street level that called in or were heard as witnesses during the whole event, every single one of them that they were talking to on the streets and so on by phone were somehow connected to these 5 different networks. They worked in the cafeteria, they were the wife of CEO, they were this and that, and all of them connected. And here we have again Fox News, which was one of them that really have been pumping out a lot around other false flag operations. So that was the stadium. I would like to put a major question mark to that one. And I also would very much like to see some evidence. Where is the footage? I mean, if 2 people have blown themselves up and then you let I don't know how many thousands of people out of the stadium, wouldn't they go to the site? Wouldn't they film it? Wouldn't they take photos of the horror? I mean, everybody's carrying a mobile phone nowadays. Nothing, not a single photo. As far as I've been able to find, there's nothing. So also one thing that you have to look out for is where we're being told about it before it happened. And you can see that sometimes this can be in the form of before the 7/7 bombings in London, for instance, they had a big program on the biggest program on BBC called Panorama, where the whole evening they were discussing a possible terrorist drama with blowing up a series of subway stations and a bus. This was, I can't remember how many months before the actual 7/7 bombings was, but it was in exact details of what happened. Same train station and a bus, and the whole thing was there with people from the government, with people from, one of them being a man called Peter Power with his company Visor, and so on, where I've always been confused. Why do they do these things? It's almost like showing a trailer of an upcoming event. But I've been told by people on the inside that the so-called elite that is behind the New World Order, the law of karma, according to them, is that if you show your victim what's going to happen and the victim does not react, then the karma is on their shoulders and the assailant goes free. And I even spoke to CIA whistleblower Chip Tatum, who was an assassin for years, and about this. I said, does that make any sense to you as a former assassin, this thing with the karma? And he said, I've never heard about that. But what I do know is that when we got the order to take someone out, we always had to go there and confront them first verbally to give them a chance, as what he said, to conform. And if not, then they got neutralized. But he said we always had to confront them first. And he hated that because he said you never know how someone like that can react. You know, maybe they start shooting or call the police or whatever. So it's a tricky area. But he said we had to do that every single time. And he said when I mentioned that, suddenly that made sense. So here we are. Was there anything like this before it happened in Paris? And there was actually a Twitter account called FZ Books that tweeted 2 days before it happened. It tweeted the exact number of deaths and wounded. It was the Paris attacks, wounded, 120 dead, and now almost 270 people wounded. Okay, this is 2 days before it happened. And the same Twitter account had almost the identical message with the same numbers of dead and wounded in connection with the Ebola virus a while ago. And there was also another major scare where there was these exact numbers again that was in these tweets. Now, this Twitter account, I don't know who owns it, FZ Books. You can go in there, it's still active, and you can see that this tweet was uploaded on the 11th of the 11th. There was also a YouTube account called Videos Paris Attack Exclusively, and that was uploaded or started on November the 12th, which is 1 day before. When people started noticing this, the account was shut down. And then you have Wikipedia, where 2 hours, less than 2 hours after this whole thing started, you could read the whole thing on Wikipedia with the number of deaths and wounded and where and who and all of these things. And 11:06 in the evening, there was one version uploaded to Wikipedia that talked about the speech that Francois Hollande had just given. The only problem was that he gave that speech 11:56. So you see that it's way before it happened, and already it's up there. And this is also one thing where you will see that these things are often very, very orchestrated. You can see pictures being uploaded before it happens. You can see Facebook pages being updated after the assassin is killed or in jail, put in jail. Suddenly his Facebook page gets updated and so on. What's happening? What is happening is that it is what we're seeing is not the true thing, and that the timeline is very tight, and there's a lot of stress, many things that needs to go hand in hand and so on. So there's a big opening for mistakes. I mean, if you remember 9/11, where the BBC reporter, female BBC reporter, was talking about Building 7 going down 20 minutes before it went down. And while she's standing talking about it, you can see the building behind her. Major mess up. So, Alfred, what are we looking at?
Yeah, this seems like, as you said, and as we've covered before, this fits within the methodology of a classic false flag. And what I found very interesting is that Paris has been hit twice with a false flag within 1 year.
Mm.
Because if we go back to Charlie Hebdo, which was in January, I think, and this was just within blocks of Charlie Hebdo.
Yeah, very close. And it's when you look at these events, you really have to compare them and see, are there any of the same, I would almost call them actors, that are central in this, because as were before. And there's one, especially one guy that I find very interesting. His name is Patrick Pelot, and he's an emergency doctor. Now, in 2011, he was shown in media having been right in front of the Charlie Hebdo building when that was set on fire at an attack. That was 2011. Okay, then 2015 in January, it was time for the Charlie Hebdo thing. And at that time, he still is a medical emergency specialist. And he was sitting in a meeting with first responders, like ambulance and fire brigade and so on. He was sitting in a meeting when the shooting began at the Charlie Hebdo office. And one of the people, he actually worked for Charlie Hebdo from time to time as well, for a few years before that. And when Charlie Hebdo happened, he says that one of the people inside the office called him saying, please come and help us, we're being shot at. So he ran there. So he was one of the absolute first people on site just after the shootings. He was there giving them, trying to give them first aid and so on. And while he was doing that, he picked up his mobile and he called the French prime minister or president. I'm not sure which one it was he called. I mean, how big are the chances that you have a direct number to the prime minister in your mobile? But this is what he had. So he called them. And not only that, but after that, he was one of the people that you saw repeatedly on a French TV crying, talking about how awful it was and so on. So he did it pretty good. So I thought, has he by any chance got any kind of theater background or acting background? And hallelujah, he actually has been playing in two big film productions. One is called, he's a nurse in a film from 2009 called Incognito. And he's a doctor in a film called Bad Girl from 2012. So not only is he one of these emergency doctors, but he's also an actor, which comes very handy in this situation. Now, this Patrick Palot appeared here again this time. And this time, he was on a radio show saying that, it was so lucky because the very morning of Friday the 13th, there was a major multi-site exercise drill going on in Paris with more or less the same theme, a mass shooting, terrorists going wild in central Paris. So the whole thing were already prepared. Lots of people saw many ambulances driving up and down the streets of central Paris before this thing happened. There's also a woman, she lives very close to some of these shootings, and she said that her son came home from school that Friday, with a note from the teacher saying that in case of an emergency, she said this has never ever happened before, but this day they were given a note saying, in case of an emergency, please do not come to the school, stay at home, do not go out to the street, don't call the police, but listen to a local radio station called French Blue for any updates. So that, in my world, is a bit suspicious, to say the least.
Right.
And then we have the people accused of this. And here we have, they're said to be ISIS. I mean, before anyone had been identified, the name ISIS was being spread around. Then very conveniently, they found a passport. I mean, come on. How many times do we have to see that? They found a passport. Because what most people don't get is that when you become a real terrorist and you start investing in gear like a Kalashnikov, the black outfit, the mask, the bombs, you also need to remind yourself, please bring my passport. That is one of the essential things as a terrorist. We've seen it, Charlie Hebdo, where they found his ID in the wrong car. It wasn't even the exact same car as they were driving around, so-called shooting in. We've seen it at 9/11, the two buildings that were totally dustified, there nothing left except one pristine passport. And this was on a national flight. So why would he even bring the passport in the first case? But then again, when you check the rental car that they left before they went to the airport, in the car, what did they find there? A VHS cassette on how to fly a 757, Boeing 757. That's really handy that you have a cassette that will teach you everything in like 10 minutes. And then next to that, a Quran, just so we wouldn't forget that they were actually Muslims. And then you have the 7/7 bombings in London. I tell you, that one is a tricky one because the same passport was found in 3 different subway stations. 3 different, same passport in 3 different stations. And they even found this suicide bomber's driver's license. We only have one minor problem here. The guy didn't have a driver's license. He couldn't drive. And here we have again a passport. very handy. And it was a Syrian passport. First, they said it was an Egyptian passport, and then they found a Syrian passport. Both of them sort of get your subconscious into thinking terrorists, Muslim terrorists, ISIS. This. Then they said, no, the Egyptian one, it was not. It was one of the people in the crowd. So it was only that the other one. You blow yourself up, and the thing that survives, your passport. Thank God for the quality of paper. Anyway, then I think we've spoken many times about the name of the patsy. For some reason, they always want a 3-name thing on serial killers and people being pointed out for these horrific things. I'm not sure why they do that, but you will see Lee Harvey Oswald, James Earl Ray, so many of them had 3 names. And here we have again the guy that they claim did it. His name was Salam Abdel Salam. Okay, Salah Abdel Salam. But if you listen to that name, Salah, it sounds like Allah. Then you have Abdel, that sounds like Abdul. And in our subconscious, nowadays, after being pumped for so many years with the propaganda of terrorists being Muslims, Allah, Abdul, and then the last part of his name, Islam. So you got Allah, Abdul, and Islam pressed and pushed into one name, Salah Abdel Salam. So your subconscious here, Allah, Abdul, Islam, it's perfect for a psyop. Maybe it's a real name, I don't know. But it's very, very good if you want to bring your thoughts in that direction. And very handy, I must say that these 8 assassins, I think it was 7 of them blew themselves up. Very considerate of them so that they cannot be identified. There's nothing left at all, except there was one finger. So they could fingerprint this guy. And because of that, they could track him down. I just want to say, be aware of if they start talking about now that we have to speed up the fingerprinting of populations everywhere for your protection. If that is the reason why they use this finger, but that's the one. Then we have the description of the shooters. Of course, they came in from these poor countries that have been totally shot to pieces. They came to France, which is a super high-tech surveillance state nowadays. They came in and managed to bypass all security, everything, even though it turns out the authorities have known about them for a long time. So, of course, they looked like Muslims with long beards and turbans and so on. No. The people, the witnesses that actually saw the people carrying this thing out said that they were about 30, 35, well-built, some of them very muscular, white, short hair, black outfit, dark outfit, sweaters with no color. And the way they shot was very distinct, like 3 shots at a time. Not like a mad person, just but that is a very military way of doing, saving the fire and keeping the fire very concentrated on your target. So what comes to mind in my world is Gladio, the network, Gladio network, and real assassins being recruited and used from these networks, mercenaries, ice cold killers, just doing their job, not knowing anything about the bigger agenda, just doing their job. If anyone got killed here, because I really had to put a big question mark around this whole thing. But they said they're said to have arrived there in a Mercedes and a BMW. So that's also standard if you come straight from Syria as a refugee. Let's get a BMW and a Mercedes. I mean, how would they even manage to get that together with, plus getting the weapons, plus the explosives and so on? And the explosives, by the way, please interrupt me, Alfred. I'm just
no. You're just laying out this tremendous stream of analysis, and I don't want to take you off track.
Okay.
And I've got some questions which I'll get to, but I'd like to, you've laid down some facts, and now you're going through uh, de deconstructing the official version,
Mm.
and so we can go through that process. And in fact, you just opened up a topic that I was going to ask you about. You said if there were any people killed.
Mm.
So I know that that's going to be a major area of discussion that we're
Yeah.
going to talk about. So I'm 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 kind of letting you uh, do the pace because I don't
Okay.
want to anticipate your
Okay.
analysis.
Okay. I'll just keep ranting on, and anytime you want, just stop me. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. When it comes to the explosives, they keep giving referrals to the 7/7 bombings, to something called, I think it's TAPD, a special. It sounds very sophisticated, these explosives, but it's actually made, made of a combination, I believe, of black pepper and hair bleach or something like that, super peroxide, these two together, which makes an explosive, but very unreliable. It can just go off anytime, and there's no real power to it. When you look at the subway stations that were blown up in London, what the very little evidence that we have been presented with, where real experts have had a chance to look at it, they say that it was C4 high grade military explosives with detonators of a kind that was so advanced that they'd never seen anything like it. Also, the victims inside these trains, or these train wagons and so on, they said that they don't talk about an explosion. They talk about being electrocuted, that the train just come to a full stop right away, and the floors of these train cars were blown upwards, but there was no real explosion. It was like they were being electrocuted. So I would very much say that there was something very odd going on with these things, just like at the blowing up of the Oslo government building and so on. They're using weaponry that we are not totally familiar with. And here they say that these explosives were TAPD, just as in London, which is absolute nonsense, absolute nonsense. So we have, let's go on a little bit, because the main tragedy, or the main event, if you want to call it, was at this music theater called Bataclan.
Yes, right. That's an area. That area is a great puzzle because we have so much conflicting information coming from that, and I'm looking forward to your going through that. So please.
Okay. Okay, Bataclan, like since I know how much they handpick these areas and buildings and so on, I straight away I look into them and so on. And it's quite interesting because the Bataclan, it's actually a musical or an operetta made by Jacques Offenbach uh, from, I think it was 1855 or something. It was his first big hit among the people. And the theme of this Bataclan operetta was a conspiracy to overtake or overthrow the emperor. So here we have exactly the conspiracy to take over. Here we have the building, and the building itself very, very colorful. And when you look at the facade, if you want to look upon it from a Freemasonry point of view, it got painted on pillars on the facade, and then you got what seems to be like an all-seeing eye at the top with a pyramid. So there's some connections there. I'm not totally sure about that one. I'm just pointing it out. But anyway, this Bataclan music theater was owned for some 40 years by Jewish owners in Paris. But just 2 months before this happened, they sold. And I'm not 100% sure. I need to confirmation, but it seems like the new owners comes from Qatar, and that the company have been very much involved in financing other terror events. So when you look at these things, there's as a real false flag, sometimes the money is coming from one point, the assassins are coming from the Gladio network, for instance. You got the security agencies working together and so on. So there are many different players involved in this. And when it comes to that, this building had been taken over 2 months before by someone who has been earlier on been involved in terrorism, I would say the chances that for a set stage inside this building would be perfect, because then they would have had 2 months for preparations inside without no one knowing. We're just renovating the things because we bought it, so nobody would even notice. So it is said that there were 1,000 people, maybe up to 1,500 people at this concert. And the concert, there was a band called the Eagles of Death Metal. And I think it's an American band. And very, the singer, his nickname is the Devil. And right away after this thing, more than one international leader went out and said, it's the work of the devil, it's all of these things. So once again, the subconscious, if it has anything to do with this, I don't know, I'm just pointing it out. But there were people in there, many people, and it said that the band started, and then after half an hour or so, suddenly these 4 terrorists entered the building and started shooting. The shooting is said to have continued for some 10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, if 4 people with automatic weapons are shooting for 10 to 15 minutes, the witnesses say that they just kept reloading and shooting, and you only have 80 dead people, you are a very bad shot, I must say. But that is the official story. And there are one video out of this crowd of 1,000 to 1,500 people. There's only one video of the band playing. I would say nowadays, with all of these people, everyone having mobile phones with video facilities, very odd, very, very odd. No photos from the inside, only one video. So we look at the video, the band is playing, you can see the guitarist and the drummer, and then after a few seconds, boom, 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 you hear shots being fired. Okay. So if you're filming a rock band and suddenly somebody opens fire just a few meters behind you, wouldn't you just flinch or get scared, or that the camera moved or anything? Or wouldn't you turn the camera toward the shooter, toward where the action is? No, here we see the camera is dead steady. You hear the shooting, bam, 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 bam. The camera does not move at all. And the silhouettes in front of it from the crowd, nobody's reacting at all. The only ones reacting is that the drummer throws himself behind his drums, and the guitarist moves to the side, and then that's the end of the video. That's it. So I would say very, very odd. Where are all the videos? Where are all the footage made by normal people when it comes to this thing? You only see professionally take photos and so on. Anyway, but so I finally managed to get a photo from inside the building. And there, for the first time, you see victims, blood, all of these things that should be there if this would be a real event. Now, there's 25 people lying on the floor, and there is smeared blood. It looks very, very odd. It looks like somebody had been dragging a dead, very, very big body around in the floor in a circular motion, leaving like a 3 feet wide mark of blood around this whole area. And when you look at it, It's like there's no people, there's no ambulance, no blankets, no equipment, no nothing, no police, no nothing, just dead bodies on the floor, and then surrounded by these blood marks. And when you look around it, when you turn the photo around and different angles, you see that suddenly the thing that they made with blood is a heart shape. I mean, how bizarre is that? It really is like painted a heart around these groups of dead bodies. So I don't know if if that is part of the psyop, if it's the Valentine massacre, or if it's because Paris is the symbol of love and romance. I have no idea, but it's very, very odd to say the least.
Right.
And then that concert hall is said from people I've heard that they normally had very nice, like floor carpets, but here these have been dragged away and it's right on the concrete floor. I would say maybe not to mess the whole thing up would be an explanation.
Right. Now let me ask you a couple of things, and perhaps you were about to go into that. There's been a very controversial analysis of that photo, as you
Mm-hmm.
know.
No, I don't. Please tell me.
Oh, okay. I think that there's been some analysis that a mother, for example, one of the participants was a Mexican girl.
Yeah.
And
Naomi Gonzalez.
yeah,
Yeah.
and whose picture now, like last night in TV in here in Canada, they will there's kind of a PSA, public service announcement, and they have the pictures of the victims, and Naomi Gonzalez is one. The young law student is another. They'll kind of flash about 6 or 8 pictures of the archetypal victims that we all know now. And one of the allegations is that Naomi, for example, and others were arrested or taken into police custody and shot in police custody and then dumped onto the floor there, and is part of the corpses on the floor. What do you think about that?
If what I've been informed is true, then what you're saying is a story that holds. It is said that she was at the concert, and then when her parents heard about this in Mexico, they saw it on Mexican news. So they called her. First, they tried to call her. She didn't answer. Then they called her boyfriend, and they got to talk to him. He said, "No, we're fine. I'm here with Nohemi, and everything is okay." Then after that, the police came and took her in for questioning because she was a witness and so on. And then she ends up with the dead. So I want to add to this thing, because if you want to hit as many countries emotionally as possible, then you do it to some of the inhabitant of that country, some of their own people. It's like, for instance, if you're in Sweden and there's 3 people from Sudan who died, nobody cares. But if it's a Swede, oh, hallelujah, my God. Or if you're in the UK and it's a British person who dies, then oi, 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 oi. And here we have a long, long line of countries where there's one dead from each country, Mexico being one of them, and she is the one. So if you want to really get as many countries involved as possibly emotionally, you get dead people from that country. And I've heard another witness that was in the area where the police asked him, "Did you see anything?" And he says, "Yes, I was a witness." And the second question he was given was, "Where do you come from?" I think that is a very odd question to ask, but it would fit in if the idea is to get as many countries involved by taking these people downtown, boom, execute them and put them down on the list of dead, which seems to have happened to this poor girl.
Yeah. Now the second thing that I mean, here we are just going back and forth there was just a horrific crime against humanity and war crime committed by the French police that probably goes directly to Hollande. My estimate is that Hollande is a knowing participant acting according to the script and in the stadium according to the script. You know, that he has,
Totally.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So all of these people are war criminals according to the Nuremberg standards. So I just want to remind people, and I'm just saying it as a war crimes judge, that that is what we're acting under. And it's not that Ole and I are discussing this casually. It's just that we're trying to make sense of the facts and we're discussing the facts, but we're not discussing this casually at all. We're discussing war crimes here. I just wanted to bring in that note. Now, on that note, there was one piece of videotape which was on late last night here on the Canadian news, which you may have seen at the Bataclan. And there was a video camera in the alleyway by the Bataclan, and there was a
yeah.
pregnant woman that was hanging from the second floor.
Mm.
Supposedly she was saying, somebody help me because if I let go, I'm going to die. And a man came along, he
Mm.
gave his first name later, and he grabbed her and he pulled her back in. Okay?
Yeah.
So we have that. What was it that led her to jump from that?
No,
What do you
she,
think?
okay. I want to point out again, look at the participant in this whole thing. The man who filmed this was a journalist from Le Monde, the big newspaper Le Monde that was very, very big and central in spreading the whole Charlie Hebdo scenario and so on. So, okay, maybe he was living there. Maybe it was just chance that it was him who was filming this whole thing. And when you see the film, it is he films up and down in this tiny little alleyway. You go down Google Map and check out the entry and exit of that road. It's a perfect road when it comes to false flags because it's a one-way road, and this one you can follow it down for 200-300 meters, 200-300 yards, and you see where you enter into this alleyway, and so perfect to close off. You can't see it from where the club is. You cannot see it, and it's absolutely empty. When you see the camera fade, or what do you call it, fade over and look down the alley, there's absolutely no one there. No one, except for the people coming out, running out from the club out of two different exits. Now the woman and there's a man as well. There are two different windows. I've gone down on Google Map, found the exact windows and taken photos of them. And it looks very, very odd because she's hanging from the ledge of this window, the top window. And it looks like she's hanging midair. And then she lets go of one arm and just hangs on with the fingertips with the other one. And she's hanging there like for at least a minute or two. I would say, if you're not Arnold Schwarzenegger, absolutely impossible. But then again, I went in, I zoomed in on that exact photo, and there are some metal bars going across that window, where it makes it possible for her to have been standing on that. At the same time, the way she's hanging out from the ledge, it looks very odd. So I would say if this was part of the false flag, she would have some kind of wire attachment or a harness or something like that.
So what you're saying is that photo was staged.
Totally.
I see. So that wasn't really a pregnant woman.
The
In,
thing, the pregnant, the
I mean, I'm saying that was not a woman in distress. That was a staged photo, is what you're saying.
a staged video, I would
A
suggest.
staged video, rather.
Yeah.
Oh, so woo! Even I got sucked into that one.
No, because you have this journalist who just happened to be there, living there, right there, filming that. Could
Yeah,
happen. That for sure would be possible. But it
yeah.
is very handy that he's working for the same newspaper that then spreads the whole thing out. But then it said that he was shot in the hand afterwards. So he was part of the victims for this whole thing. But how is it possible when the all the four gunmen were inside the building. They killed them inside the building. They never left. And he was in a building on the other side of this alley and got shot in the hand after filming this. How is that possible? But then again, if he's one of the victims, then as soon as somebody like me point at him saying critically, hello, what's going on? Then a lot of people turn against me. How can you say that he was shot? How can you even doubt that? I
Right.
can. So
So that this is really expert, i.e., if they're going to stage photos, that this is like you say, if we go back to the original hypothesis that we read at the beginning of the program here, which is based on your analysis and our collective analysis going back over a whole number of false flags.
many.
And that is that this is like motion pictures. And you've been on movie shoots, and you know that there's a lot of planning that goes into each shot. You know, you when you go into each shot, you go in and there's a lot of analysis. Like when you're, you know, you go in to shoot in a movie, a fictional movie, you know, somebody dying or something. There's a lot of thought. If we take this over, and if there was that transfer 2 months ago to the Qatar firm, it was the same thing to Charlie Hebdo, that the Rothschilds bought the Charlie Hebdo building so they could plan out the whole false flag. So they bought the set. Let's say that now the Bataclan Theater becomes the set. So then you have to prepare the set. So then you have to prepare all of the shots, right? So then this is like one of the shots, because you're saying, how come there's no video? But then I thought, but there's that one video, which we saw on Canadian TV last night on the 11 o'clock news. And but now you're saying, which I begin to understand, is that that's like a movie shot. You spend a lot of time planning that, and then, but let me follow it through, because the narrative with that is that the unknown hero was unknown, and then the woman said, put out a call on social media to find him, and then the hero who pulled him in was found on social media but would only give his first name, right? When do you have heroes that only give their first name? I mean, and they put a call out on social media, and so this is like, so that I believe it sounds like there's a whole underground there of the false flag operation, and they're shuffling people back and forth to bring them forth on their cameos. So this is all cameos for the news, right? I'm kind of doing free association. It seems like the false flag consists of cameos. Is that, am I making sense here?
It's standard procedure. What you're saying is standard procedure. It's like I, with my knowledge of false flag, I would have set it up exactly like this. Boom, boom, maybe a little bit better, hopefully. Do you know there's if something like this happened there, I mean, they kept shooting in there for 10 to 15 minutes. There were bombs exploding and so on. Then you see the footage around the whole thing. You got the ambulances and so on. Look at the buildings surrounding this whole thing. Look at the lights in the windows. How many lights are there on? One or two windows of all the surrounding buildings. Why is that? Wouldn't you, if you lived right next to this thing, wouldn't you wake up from all this noise and the ambulance and explosions? And wouldn't you maybe look out the window? Wouldn't you make a, not if these buildings were evacuated? I would very much like to find out the people who live there, what happened, because it's standard procedure to evacuate the area. Also, there's another video that now has come forward where it's filming on the side of this, from the front of and to the side of the Bataclan, of this valley, no, this alley, and you can see there's no pedestrians coming running. I mean, we're talking central Paris. There should have been, it's Friday evening, lots and lots of people should have been here. No one is coming there. You just see people moaning, lying around on the pavement, not a lot of them, and some people standing around trying to help them. Very few. Where are all the rest? And I tell you, there's some photos taken outside the Bataclan where when you see the news and so on, when you go to a news site and you see a photo, if you click on that photo, you will see the URL to the exact position on the server where that photo is. Do you know what I mean? Like you will see the website name / maybe if on the server, that exact folder is called pictures and blah, blah, blah. And then the number of name of the photo. Here, when you click, because when I looked very deeply into the Oslo massacre and so on, I found that TV2 in Norway, there were some photos that when you clicked on it and you saw the URL, it said tv2.no, that's for Norway, / Oslo terror / victims / actors / and then the numbers of that. And with some of the people that I believe really was killed, there was no / actors / it was just victims and then the name. But then some others that was, and then the other ones that was very clearly crisis actors, they had this actors / and then the name of it. And here we look at the Paris thing, and I was sent this from a very observant guy, and the URL is i2.cdn.turner.com, that's for CNN, / CNN next / DAM / assets / and then the number of the photo. Assets, these where you have the photos of these people running around looking wounded and so on, it says assets before them.
Right.
And then you have like, where is all the blood? Here people have been massacred right, left, and center. There is no photos of people with any blood except for inside the Bataclan, except for one guy. He's walking around in a t-shirt with lots of blood on it, being helped by a police officer and so on. You look at that one, you start looking closer, you will see that the t-shirt is inside out and back to front. Do you see who would do a thing like that if you're not stressed or in a hurry or something like that? It's very clearly, you can see the little tag, it's from you have in the neck, it's right there in the front, and you can see the seams on the side. And then you even got product placement, I would say. You know, we've been talking about these things before, that it's so cold and sinister the way that they do these things nowadays, that they even use the opportunity to sell things like you know, Charlie Hebdo. There was this Citroën C3 that not the car that they were driving around it. That was a Citroën C3 from 2014 with chrome side mirrors and some extra lights in the front. That car where the back window was shot out and so on was not the car that was found and where they found the ID, because that was a C3 from 2013 with black side mirrors and no extra lights in the front. But after they did the forensic investigation where they find the ID and so on, this car was lifted up onto a truck and taken away. And that photo was seen by millions and millions and millions of people. That car was shining like a showroom example. So I would very much like say a possible Citroën product placement ad. You had inside the Charlie Hebdo office, there's only one picture that I've been able to get from the inside. There's a big pool of blood with an office chair just sat right on top of it. No blood whatsoever on the chair. Lots of this very red thing on the floor. And since that is where your eyes will be drawn, right next to it is a bag where it says Puma. Then you have where the police officer is said to have been shot on the pavement. You know, the famous video where these two terrorists gave him a headshot? Not. He's doing fine. He's in Brazil at the moment, doing fine, I've been told, this dead police officer. But when you go down Google Map and you look at the exact position and you turn towards the pavement where he's said to have been killed, you're looking straight into the side of a big, big truck where on the side it says rental cars and then a URL. I think there's even a phone number. Then you have the 7/7 bombings, the same photos of this blown up bus that was spread everywhere. On the side of it, a Coca-Cola bottle with an explosion behind it. A big poster right on the side of the bus where millions and millions of people are going to look. You know, like they bought Charlie Hebdo just a few weeks before it happened. As far as I remember, the profit went up 10,000%. You know, they're making a bundle. And here with this one, there's photos of some clothes that people, some of the victims, they've been running and just left clothes. So you see photos of SWAT teams and so on. And then there are two Nike shoes turned so that the logo is white and beautiful, staring right at you. You got another guy. There was a guy that walked around just outside the stadium. He didn't give his name either. He's known as Sylvester. And he was on a mobile phone when one of the bombs went off, it said. And a piece of shrapnel came and had killed him had he not had his phone. And so he shows the phone with a cracked screen on it and say, "This phone saved my life." And I think, I can't remember what, it was Samsung. It was Samsung. So there again, he's holding up. Can you hear the slogan? Samsung saved his life. And it just goes on and on. I've got more things like that. It's every single time you have a shaken video taken like by a terrorist or of a terrorist, it's a GoPro camera. It is a GoPro camera every single time. And very often they even say it in the text underneath, GoPro camera, GoPro camera. You look at ISIS, I dare you, show me a photo of ISIS where there's a vehicle in it and it's not a Toyota. Sponsored by Toyota.
Right. Right.
And it's so cynical. It really is so cold and cynical, the way they think.
Right. Right.
Can I also say now, I've just seen that CNN has spread out that, oh, there's a new app called, I think it's called Telegram, used by terrorists. And they say it's used because it's got super good encryptions and this, and you can make it use it for group calls. And here's the logo and the symbol for this app and so on. I mean, how many people, it's embedded into the text of terrorism that people are reading, full of fear and open emotionally and so on. And then they see this app. Oh my God! If it's good enough for ISIS and it's that good encryption, good.
We might as well get it.
I need one of those. You know. Oh, right. They're playing us. They're playing us. I tell you.
Right. Right. So there's so many strands going on. I know that let's go to kind of the aftermath. Last night, which was early, say 7 a.m. Paris time, 7 a.m. Spain time, Wednesday, they had continual coverage. I mean, here in North America, the news has been 24/7 Paris. I mean, 24/7 Paris, wall-to-wall Paris. It's like everything is Paris, okay? From Friday forward, we're on Wednesday, and it's 24/7 Paris, following all of the action in all of the arrondissements, in Saint-Denis, in the 11th arrondissement, everything. And so last night, it was in Saint-Denis, I think, that they had they were after this couple that was supposedly the mastermind of the Paris bombings had been cornered with his wife in an apartment in, I think it was Saint Denis, and all you saw, I mean, for hours, it was like there were so many police vans and trucks and everything. It was incredible, and it went on for hours and hours and hours. And then the last I heard is that she blew herself up in a suicide vest, and I don't know if they ever caught him. And he was supposedly the mastermind. Have you been following that thread?
No, this is new for me. I've been doing interviews all day, so
Right. Yeah. So, and then the other thread was in Brussels, that the whole thing had been operated out of Brussels, and as far as we know, we had been working on Thursday and Friday in Brussels with our colleagues there, getting ready legislation for the European Union. It was there is no terrorist headquarters in there. In fact, it's a pedophile headquarters. It's the headquarters of the dark side, Brussels, not of the and so it's like the whole thing is fake. In other words, they're creating boogeymen to kind of cover up any of the positive work that our side is doing, because our side is now marshaling to move forward in Brussels to start bringing some sanity. And so then what they had over the weekend was that the headquarters was in Brussels, and that now they're tracing this guy, one of the guys in Brussels. Have you been following that particular thread?
I have, to some extent. I just want to say Brussels is very central in this, because as far as I know, the headquarters of Gladio Stay Behind is in Brussels. So it's a city with very dark things going on underneath the surface. But that is also why they may have chosen that city, because that is where they can control patsies, set them up and kill them and serve them for the masses.
Right. So that Brussels is that you just said something incredibly significant. That Brussels is the headquarters of Gladio. It's not the headquarters of ISIS. It's the headquarters of Gladio, and therefore it's the headquarters of ISIS, because ISIS is just an outgrowth of these 40 nations that have come together to create a false front called ISIS.
I mean, this is what I've been informed about. I cannot swear to that, but as far as I know, it used to be, and I still think it is, the headquarters of Gladio.
Yeah.
That is where it's been controlled from. And I also want to say that before this thing happened, I think it was on the 27th or 29th of October, there was a conference at the George Washington University, where the Center for Cyber and Homeland Security, that sounds nice, they had a panel called the Shared 21st Century International Mission. The Shared 21st Century International Mission. Listen to the word international mission. And the people invited there were former UK MI6 chief John Sawyers, director for the French Directorate for External Security Bernard Bachelet, and former Israeli National Security Advisor Yaakov Amidror, and the CIA Director John O'Brien. He was there as well. So you had the CIA, the Mossad, the MI6, and the French security forces. They're meeting just a week before this happened, giving a talk. But what else did they do? And also Francois Hollande, he was on the phone with Obama the very same morning before this whole thing took off. So, yeah. And then you have Angela Merkel from Germany. I mean, it's the same key players. Very few people keep popping up again and again. in this whole thing. And that's where these networks around the Bilderberg group and so on is the one where it shows you how they're connected. But I just found out that in Hanover, Angela Merkel was supposed to go to a soccer game in a stadium in Hanover. Okay, but that one they blew off because it turned out that there was an ambulance filled with explosives that was parked in there about to blow the whole thing apart. I'm telling you, this is just absolute lies that are being pumped out to put us into freak out mode so that we will easier accept them going and bombing absolutely innocent people in Syria and so on, with the mission of taking out ISIS, which is their creation. It is their tool. It is just an upgraded, digitalized version of Al-Qaeda, which was their creation as well. So it's like the enemy is them.
Right, right. Now, let's just step back a bit also, because what happened is that we had a national election about a couple of weeks prior to all of this. And then they brought in the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who's the second youngest prime minister. He's the son of Pierre Trudeau, who was a prior one. And so when he comes in, it's clear that there's a whole series of international meetings. There's the Turkey meeting, which just took place. Then there's the APEC meeting in the Philippines, which is taking place now. Mm-hmm. And then starting on November 30th, there's the Paris Climate Summit. Mm-hmm. And the Paris Climate Summit is the first follow-on meeting of the UN meeting this past September, where the Pope opened it up and they said, we're going to bring in the new post-2015 global agenda. Okay? So there's, in other words, this Friday the 13th is to set the stage for the November 30th Paris Climate Summit, which is where the whole world leaders comes about to write the rules for the climate summit. Now,
for the whole world.
Yeah, exactly.
Legally binding.
Yeah.
Laws.
Yeah. Now, there's an Economist. You can go to the last cover of the Economist, and these are like little, there's all these YouTubes. I mean, everybody's trying to find out as much as possible. And there was one that I came across. This is priceless. You go to the YouTube, you go to the Economist, which is out of Britain, and that is a New World Order magazine of the highest order. On the cover, they produced like this collage of Renaissance paintings, and they have two arrows, and on the arrows is the date of 11/13/15. Okay, in other words, November 13th, 2015, on the cover of the November Economist. So this is setting up the whole thing, and the Economist is all about the Turkey summit, which just happened, the climate summit, which just happened, the APEC summit, which is happening right now. And on the cover of it is the two arrows with 11/13/15. In other words, the date of Friday the 13th and the false flag. So that's the highest levels of the global Illuminati. So it seems to me that what the Illuminati did is that they set up the whole thing around Friday, November 13th, around Friday the 13th, which is a superstitious day having to do with the 12 apostles and Jesus and the Last Supper. That's the significance of the 13. And Friday the 13th, the superstition is when the Knights Templar were murdered on that date on the orders of the Pope in the Vatican, who got jealous of their power, and he did it on the Friday of the 13th. And so what they did is that they chose Friday the 13th for the Paris thing in a problem plus reaction plus solution, and then they have all these confluence of meetings that would be driven by the synthetic terror false flag event of Friday the 13th. I'm just kind of, you know, looking at this vision here. What's your reaction to what I'm saying?
I totally agree with it. I think that they have been stirring up what they see as a crescendo. I think that they tried 2012 with the whole world going on, and they didn't get it. I mean, that chance passed them. So since then, they've regrouped, and now they tried again. And I think they really aim to get us into this awful mass hysteria, mass chaos situation in September, around the 23rd and 15th, and with Jade Helm 15 and all of these things. But that didn't succeed either. So now here they are, like trying to create a Wagner crescendo where everything is coming together, and where we will just bend down, totally fearful in all of this chaos and mayhem that is going on. And that is when they're going to take over and get a global martial law, go in, not maybe global, but really go in and make this major overtake. So you also got the G-20 summit, which is in Turkey. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Did you know that? The Turkey one, right?
Did you know that Al Gore was having a climate change conference or a 24-hour live event in the Eiffel Tower when this happened?
Al Gore, you mean on Friday the 13th? He was having a conference in the Eiffel Tower?
He was indeed, but they
That's
canceled.
crazy.
But then I'm going to tell you another thing that is part of these false flag, part of the ingredients. Very, very often they pull it off on a Friday, especially on a Friday afternoon and so on. And the reason, in my humble opinion, is because then they can close the stock market out of respect for the dead and their families. That's what they say. But what they do is there's a lot of insider trading going on before the event takes off, and then boom, they close the stock market, and then they got 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to sort everything out, to lock currencies and everything, and make absolute billions at the same time, clearing as much of their tracks in there. And then Monday morning, when it opens up again, nobody will notice. They did that with the JFK. People made absolute billions. That when the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme was murdered, it was almost the all-time high of the Swedish stock market. They do it again and again. You had 9/11 with the stop options on American Airlines and these types. It's incredible insider trading when people know what's going to happen. And I bet you, if you start checking out the stock market and so on around this Paris event, you will find the same thing.
You know, I was just about to ask you a question about the mainstream media, and then I answered my own question in my head, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because we know that all of the mainstream media are owned by 6 companies, and probably by one company. You'll find out that all those companies are owned by one company, because it just blows my mind that you have all of these mainstream companies and all these journalists, and here you and I are, and everybody who's on the internet following all this stuff, and it's clear as day to everybody. Why is it that none of this can get on the mainstream media? And I guess it's because the mainstream media is owned by the corporations that are planning the false flags, and they just will not allow it. And the journalists who work there have sold their souls under contract, and if they spoke up, they'd probably be assassinated. And so, what do you think about that? What's your opinion on why this is not why is this not showing up in the mainstream media?
I think just like you say, you answered it yourself. I mean, the owners of the newspaper or the TV channel, they're the ones deciding it. Then you got the chief editor and so on. They decide on a lower level. And I used to work as a journalist. And I'll tell you, a normal journalist will have no idea about what is going on above him. You are given the task for the day and so on. And most journalists are so stressed out with all of these tasks, but they're given tasks, you know, like what did Britney Spears have for breakfast, or that football star, oh my God, he's got a knee injury. And no one of them are given the time to really look into these things. So we're back to this compartmentalization that very few people know more than their little part. And I know in Sweden and other countries that the chief editors of newspapers and so on, they, at least in Sweden, do their military service in the psychological defense department, the Swedish psychological defense department, where these things are part of what they call national security, to direct the nation in a way that is best for the nation. That's the official story. I would say best for these major financial interests that are trying to take over this world. So
Right, right. Um, it is just amazing to me that we had two events, Charlie Hebdo and now Friday the 13th, and that the analysis was out there on Charlie Hebdo that it was a false flag, and that now none of that analysis has made its way into the mainstream the mainstream media, that oh, we just had Charlie Hebdo and that was a false flag, because we can see this reporting by Ole Dammegard, former journalist, Alfred Webre, former journalist. I mean, I used to be a journalist for the major newspapers also. And I guess that we were just employees. We don't count. Is that basically what the major newspapers think? They don't really care about anybody that's not an employee, and they're just on with blinders, and it's just basically the mainstream media has become a paramilitary force of psychological operations and disinformation.
I wish I could say you were wrong, but I think that is a very good description of it. And I think that should make normal journalists just go, whoa, my God, this is just, we need to stop this. But there's nothing like that at all going on. I know when, like I've on my website, lightonconspiracies.com, you can find my book, Coup d'etat in Slow Motion. It's on Amazon as well. It's taken me 25 years to get published. 25 years. Coup d'etat in Slow Motion. It is about, it's in 2 volumes, and it's almost 1,000 pages about the assassination of the Swedish Prime Minister, with all the connections into global illegal arms trading, into many other assassinations, including direct links to the JFK assassination, personal links, people being in Dealey Plaza and in Stockholm taking part of the hit 23 years later, and so much more. That book I have sent to, an email to about 1,100 media contacts in Denmark and Sweden saying, listen, I have devoted 30 years of my life into finding out the truth. I can send you the book as an ebook for free. I'll be most happy to assist you in any way or form I can, so that the truth will get out there. Because the truth is still, people are still talking about, was it the patsy or was it not? Was it the patsy or was it not? It was not. I tell you, that assassination and the things surrounding it, it is massive. It is almost as big as the JFK assassination. Absolutely incredible story. How many responses did I get? I sent to 1,100. How many responses? Please, you answer me, Alfred. How many do you think got back to me and said, yes, please send me your ebook. If it's crap, I'll throw it out. If it's good, I will use it in my research around this very, very historically important event. How many?
These are, you sent it to 1,100 mainstream journalists. Is that what you're saying?
Everything from mainstream to freelance to all of these TV media. So I
Yeah.
got two replies out of 1,100. So that for me also, that it's taken me so many years to get it published, and I published it myself in the end. Or now it's on the Moonrock books with Fetz and many other experts.
Right.
But there is like one conspiracy of whatever happened, but then there's followed by a secondary conspiracy of silence. There's this silence that surrounds these things. It is, and it's a minefield. If you get into these areas, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, and if you keep digging, you very often end up dead. I mean, I've had death threats and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I'm yeah, very recently, and I'm looked upon as a terrorist. I mean, this is one of the things they're talking about now in France, is that we need to stop conspiracy theory, the spread of conspiracy, what they call theories,
Well,
by law, making it illegal.
yeah, yeah, and fortunately, you're in Spain now, and as I understand it, Spain issued an arrest warrant for one of the principal terrorists, ben, Benjamin Net, Benjamin Net, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, but
Or is that
this is also a country. Apparently, they did that. If it's true, fantastic. But if at the same time we have in Spain what is called a gag law, you are not allowed to criticize politicians. You are not allowed to make jokes about
I
politicians.
see.
You're not allowed to take photos of a police officer. You're not allowed. There's so many things. You're not allowed to demonstrate. You're not allowed to you know, you can be, I can, for what I'm doing here now, I can be fined, I think, up to 300,000 euros.
Well, no, because the law that would apply to you is the law of the United States and of Canada, which fall under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that gives you absolute immunity.
I don't know. I mean, I don't care. I'm going to
Yeah,
continue.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, the thing is, we need to speak out. You know, we need to get this out in the open.
Right, right. Well, that was a question I was going to ask you. It seems now that our community of research scholars, and you are at the forefront of it. You really have undertaken to travel around Europe and around the world to wake people up to what's happening, and I really have to commend you. And
Thank you.
and you're kind of a truth squadron that is following around after this traveling false flag, uh, 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 traveling squad that we've been able to document, and we don't know what the succeeding false flags are. I mean, one of the other videos that they broadcast yesterday was supposedly a high-ranking ISIS delegation, which I watched it on the television here, saying the next one is in Washington, D.C. You know, there are about 7 or 8 ISIS guys, and they were haranguing and saying the next one is in Washington, D.C. And, you know, they already did 9/11, part of 9/11 in Washington, D.C. So it's, we can well imagine what a false flag there would would be like you've got all these monuments and avenues, and it's all
mm,
laid out in a Masonic design anyway.
mm,
And Washington is the headquarters of one of the major headquarters of ISIS, so
mm.
they can really set it up.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
so I guess that part of our job that we're covering this is, number one, we might as well have contingency plans to cover the next false flag. Maybe it's Washington, maybe it's who knows, London. There's a movie coming out that if you watch the trailer, it's called London Has Fallen, and it's coming out in March of 2016. And if you watch the trailer, it makes Paris, uh, uh, Friday the 13th, look like child's play. I
Mm,
mean, you've got the House of Lords, Parliament coming down, London bridges falling down, all of it just going kaboom. And so what agenda? And I realize that this is a marathon and not a sprint, because we've been at this for a long time.
mm,
We've all started out with the JFK assassination, Martin Luther King,
mm,
RFK, Malcolm X, 9/11, 7/7. Then we came into all the false flags
mm,
since 9/11. Uh, all of those. So
mm.
what do we do as a community now? Because we know that that's their MO. Their MO is going to be false flags. So how can and they're trying to get in laws which are going to try to put us out of business, right?
Mm,
So we're like any normal business. You want to put us out of business? Hey, you're not going to put us out of business,
mm.
So what do we do? Do we like prepare ourselves? Should you write a book saying, here are the rules of the false flags? Should we start, upping up our game? I mean, what do we do?
I tell you, I'm right now being part of a series of books that is being published by Jim Fetzer and some other people. I'm making the cover and the layout, but this book that is about, there's one about the moon hoax, the Paul McCartney big mystery there, the double of Bin Laden, and these type of thing in one book. There's one called Nobody Died in Sandy Hook, and
Right.
this latest one is called And Nobody Died in Boston Either. Very, very, I would say, very, very good books because it's a combination of many different experts just put together. There's 8 or 10 in every book, giving their version and their input into uncovering these things. And in that one about Boston, I have a chapter myself called Terror by Template, where I just totally pick the whole pie apart, saying this is how you create it. This is how you do it. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I also done on my website, you can find Light on Conspiracies. You can find, I've done several talks on the Open Mind Conference in Amsterdam, Copenhagen, and so on. And one of them are called something like false flag operations and political assassinations, how they are all connected. And there I go step by step by step by step, also just showing this is not super complicated. It is like making a pie. You need certain ingredients. And once you see how it's done, boom, then you will start be able to smell it once they start baking in one. And one of the main ingredients is a drill. And these drills are very often being published in local newspapers or the TV or something saying, tomorrow, for your protection, we're going to have a mass shooting drill in here and here or there and there. And or if you want to sign up as a crisis actors, please come here, do this, and so on. The idea that I have is instead of always being one step behind, let's get one step ahead of them. So what I recommend people is when you hear about a drill, if you see anything that looks like them setting up a drill, or you read about that it's coming to your town or city or wherever, bring your friends, bring your cameras, go there and film it when it's being set up the day before. Film the people setting the whole thing up. It will look like a film set. There will be quite maybe strange vehicles, people in uniforms or things, or you will see catering things, you will see streets being closed off, you will be just like if it was a shoot for a commercial of Coca-Cola or whatever. Go there, bring your cameras and start filming them. Make it very, very obvious to them that they're being observed and filmed. And when you're at it, there are different apps. I think one of them is called Bamboozle, that makes it possible for you to stream live on YouTube. Should they come at you and try to take your camera from you or something like that, just use the app, boom, get it up there live on YouTube. What's going on? And don't go alone. Be a group of people so that it's not so easy for them to deal with you. And that hopefully will give them cold feet, because these people, it's hard to call them people sometimes because of their awful and horrible actions, what they're doing. But they work like cockroaches. They are like cockroaches, really, because they can only work in the dark, only work in the shades, in the cover. They do not, as soon as you aim the light at them, boom, they disappear. So, and Chip Tatum, the CIA whistleblower, who's been part of false flags himself in his career, he says that every time we disturb a false flag, because they're connected, they're so in a timeline where one thing needs to be take off for the next one to be able to function, and so on and so on and so on. So he said every single time we mess it up for them, we can disturb their timeline for months. So things that maybe if we stop a false flag in Copenhagen or in Virginia or something like that, that can affect possible things in Syria or Croatia or things like that, because they're so connected at this point. So I say, let's keep stirring it, let's keep disturbing to destroy their timeline, totally non-violent, but by exposure, fearless exposure. And let's make this stop, because at least I am tired. I want a cold beer to kick back, put my feet up and just say, listen, enough is enough,
Enough is enough. I fully empathize with you. I know that we always come to this point in the various programs that we do after this false flags, where you come and you say, enough is enough. But I have a couple of questions that I still want to ask you. So I'm going to push you further. The first question is this, and I know that this is all hypothetical. But we've asked it in previous questions. So we just had Paris on Friday the 13th of November, and we know that these people aren't going to stop, and we know that we have the movie London is Falling coming out in March of 2016. We know that the ISIS leadership just released a video which is on the world news saying Washington is next.
Yeah.
What's your, as one of the leading persons in the world who's on top of this on top of this situation of false flags, what's your instinct or any feeling that you have as to where the traveling troop is going to be sent next?
First of all, I want to say they want us to react emotionally with no thinking, just react and support their very brutal agenda. I said, instead of react when these things happen, whatever happens, whatever is being pumped out through the media saying, this has now happened, whatever it is, if it's alien invasions or the blowing up of Washington Center, whatever it is, take it easy, take a step back, breathe. Is this really happening? Who benefits from me freaking out? What is it they want us to do? What is the solution they're going to serve us? Because nowadays, since most people's concentration span is very short, they will give it to us within 20, 30 seconds on the news. This awful things happen. Oh my God, oh my God. The reporter will then interview a witness. The witness will say, they behaved like animals, they chopped them up, they did all of these things to get your emotions going. Please understand that the person they interview is very often part of the whole thing. And then the reporter will say, oh my God, because of this, we need a stricter gun law, or we need to attack Syria, or it was bin Laden, or it was, they will say what it is they want us to understand. So we get it, problem, reaction, boom, there's the solution. And you will just, if you're not aware, you will go into the emotional reaction and say, yes, I support that. Look at all of these people putting up all of these French colors everywhere. I mean, if you want to look at it, a certain number of people died in Paris. How many people are dying in Palestine and Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq, all of these countries that we in the Western, we are doing it to them, and then we're complaining about them escaping here as refugees. I mean, stop the wars, they will stop coming. Anyway, when it comes to these things, I just want to point out that, you know, with these colors coming out, I was told it was actually Kerry Cassidy at Project Camelot that the light coloring of Wembley Stadium got on 1 hour before it happened in Paris. I would say, is it possible that there's the difference in time zone where Paris is 1 hour ahead? Was that what messed the whole thing up? Because it went on at Wembley and then, suddenly messed up, boom, turned it off again.
Sorry, I could you repeat that, because I didn't quite get it.
Okay, okay. Kerry Cassidy at Project Camelot, she said that she's been informed that the lights, you know, that there's so many buildings around the world now that have the French colors on them, you know, the blue, the white, and the red on them. Yeah, in Sydney, in Paris, in London. And so, and the ones at Wembley Stadium, I think it was the Wembley Stadium in London, those lights came on 1 hour before this.
Because they didn't have their change of time synced correctly.
Exactly. And then somebody said, oh my, you messed up, you know, and suddenly, boom, the lights went off again, and then they came back on.
Yeah.
You know,
because they can't get it, because they're rushing. In a way, they're rushing because they're artificial timelines. They're on artificial timelines. From above, they're getting orders that this has to happen by such and such a date, and all of their ducks aren't in a row. So what you're saying, and what Chip Tatum says is true. They're being knocked off their timelines, and so their order is all out of sync. Their order is all out of sync. That's very interesting. That's a good sign.
Totally. I think they're really. You think that they're just because they look powerful that they can lean back and, you know, feet on the table and just relax. I think they're very, very disturbed by us. I really hope so. I hope I'm a major boil in the butt. But because so many people are waking up to these facts, I tell you, like before the Boston bombing, nobody had heard about false flags. And then now it's in almost every a term that is used by so many people. And when this happened in Paris, I was overloaded by emails, Facebook. I can hardly keep up, you know, because so many people are saying, what's on, what's this, what's that, what's this, is this, is it? And they keep sending me stuff. And I must thank all of these people sending me a lot of this information as well, because they're so on top of the whole thing. And this freaks these people out, because the thing is, they are so few and we are so many.
Right.
They're in the thousands, we are in the billions. And many people say, yeah, but they've got all these armies and they got all this high-tech weaponry and so on. these people are mostly old guys. How good are old guys, even with a computer? If there's a virus, can they sort it out? Can they do this? Would they be able to shoot even with a bazooka, a normal one? No. Could they control a drone? No, they could not. Could they fix a surveillance camera system? Install it? No, they could not. They depend on us. It is we that are doing it to ourselves, you know. So this is why we all need to wake up, we normal people, and look in the mirror and say, am I in any way or form taking part of this? What am I doing that can be used against the world? Am I being used in this whole operation? And many, many, many of us are, but we're being compartmentalized, so we're not aware of what we're doing.
Right, right. Let me just ask you a kind of a small detail question, going back to the Paris Friday the 13th false flag operation. And this is circulating on the internet. There's photographs of one particular woman. She's a kind of a youngish, dark-haired woman who allegedly is a crisis actor that has appeared in Aurora. She appeared in Sandy Hook. She appeared in Boston, and now she's been photographed. Kind of police, or she's kind of like she has a classic pose where she's sobbing like this, and police are carrying her on, and they photograph her. Have you followed her? Have you followed her through the various false flags?
Yeah.
Have you seen her photograph in Paris?
Yeah, and I totally disagree. I do
I
not
see.
agree.
You
It's,
do
in my
not
opinion,
agree.
it's on the 3 other events where she is, that's
Yeah,
the same girl.
the
On
same one.
this one, it's not.
It's
And
not.
you will also see that the photo that they put together with the photos from Aurora and so on,
Yeah,
the photo now from Paris is squashed together
I see.
height-wise. When you see the original photo, you will see, at least the way I see it, not the same. Not the same.
Not the same. So, do you think that these are trolls who are trying to discredit the analysis and the research deconstructing the false flag?
Very possible. I mean, they're everywhere. You know, I keep getting, you know, like comments on Facebook, like, it's really interesting what you write. I just hope you get it more correct than the one you did on Norway, because that was a real mess up. So, you know, I'm like, I wrote back, thank you so very much for pointing that out. Since truth is very important for me, please point out where exactly did I mess up. No answer. You know,
Yeah.
but this is the way they do it, to discredit you.
Right.
And so there are all these traps built in.
Right.
I mean, these agencies, they call themselves intelligence agencies. I think that is a joke in itself. Take away the madness agencies would be more correct.
Right.
But they have incredible budgets. And I mean, you never see them walk around in the streets. Oh, there's an MI6 agent, or there's a CIA or NSA. Where are they? They are doing things, messing things up, or doing things. They're working hard. And one of the things is Facebook and these social medias. That's also where, when they carry out things like this, you will see there's a Twitter campaign on standby in English, on standby before it even happens. And boom, it goes out there in English, so that it can be spread globally, not in Dutch or Swedish or whatever it is, where and so on. So who are they? They know the tools, they know the game, and so it's just. But I believe it is like, I'm sometimes I say, you know, when you look at a magicians like David Copperfield or something like that, and he does things, and it's just like, that is unbelievable. That is pure magic. But then the more times you see him doing it, and you start changing angle so that you move around him to see what actually going on. And it looks like he's doing it with his left hand, whatever it is, a rabbit comes and goes or whatever. Then when you move around him, then suddenly, maybe when you're behind him, you see, oh shit, he's doing it with his right hand behind his back.
I see.
The second you see it, how it's done, the second you see it, the spell is broken.
Right,
Because from then on, as soon as he even lifts his left arm and say, I'm going to show you a trick, you're going to go, oh, come on, I know how you do it. I'm not buying that one. And it's the same with these things. We need to break the spell by exposing it. That's how it's done. Got it. I'm not buying into it anymore.
right, right. Well, is there uh, is there anything that you had wanted to say about the Friday the 13th Paris false flag that you haven't had the opportunity to bring up yet?
There is the thing about the G-20 and the climate change conference. These things are very, very controversial. And they were expecting a lot of protests and demonstrations and so on. But now, due to our for the protection of us, we're not allowed to protest. We're not allowed to demonstrate. We're not allowed to do these things. They're very, very convenient for them, I would say, and totally according to plan. Except for that, I just want to say I'm not employed or paid by anyone to do this. I'm just an ordinary guy devoting my life to truth and trying to do everything I can to turn this world into this beautiful place it's designed to be, instead of being messed up by this elite few, or the lightless, the minority as I call them. So if anyone wants to join me in this or help me in this, please, on my website, Light on Conspiracies, there are books. Sign up for my newsletter. I have one every month where I show you up to date the latest things that I've been able to uncover and show and so on. Also, donations is extremely appreciated. And one thing I want to say is that I would very much like to make a series of documentaries where I go around, just like, is it David Attenborough? You know, these nature programs where you see him stand in front of a palm tree and say, well, behind me, you can hear the monkeys go around. I would like to do the exact same thing, but on false flag locations. On location, go there with a small little film crew and totally decipher and pull apart everything from the beheading in Woolwich, 9/11 Boston bombing, the Sandy Hook, the killing of the Swedish Prime Minister, the Oslo terror attacks, the 7/7 bombings, Paris, these different events and so on location. Because when you're there and you can start seeing the angles, the distances, the buildings, everything, it is so much easier to clearly be able to really expose what was the real truth. And so I'm looking for people who would like to join in somehow sponsoring this thing. I'm so ready. I know Nicholas Kollerström, which is an incredible researcher as well. He is open for this idea as well. So if we could go the two of us, and then with a small film crew, and produce some very, very, very powerful documentaries, just pulling this whole thing apart, showing, getting rid of this disease, this cancer growth that is trying to kill us. Because really it is like Mother Earth, and she's got this beautiful body, but with a cancer growth that is threatening to kill her if we do not expose it. Open it up, even though it's painful and smelly, and expose it so that she can heal herself. True healing can take place. So anyone who has any contacts or possible ways of financing things like that, please contact me. I would also, if it's possible, Alfred, for me to just continue 30
Sure.
seconds. One of the problems for me is to get to places. I don't have the finances to fly everywhere. I'm always trying to go on location when things happen, or before it happens, or go to conferences or meeting people wherever who are thirsting for this information and so on. But the plane tickets are the thing that is the hard thing because they're often so expensive. So anyone who works for a what do you call it, airplane company, what do you call it, like any kind of company like that, if I could make some agreement with that company for free flights, and I will help stop terror attacks on the flights, because so many of these false flags are aimed at, especially Boeing aircrafts at this time as well. Or as a thank you for free tickets, whatever, I can do talks for the crew or for the whatever. I'd be so happy to do that. If anyone has contacts or is interested in this type of thing, I would be extremely happy for that as well, so that this information can get out there to as many as possible as soon as possible. Because this is not a time to pick your belly button and change the channel. We really need to wake up and act as well.
Sure. And how can people contact you?
My website is lightonconspiracies.com, lightonconspiracies.com. You can find me on Facebook as well. My email is info@lightonconspiracies.com. And well, that's about it.
Well, we certainly want to thank you, Ole, for your time in preparing and the amazing program today, and for your time that and your mission that you have undertaken to really alert the world to this, I would call it a plague or a disease of false flag operations, which are an incursion into healthy human society, and to really open this up for the world. And I know that there are thousands, and if not millions, of people that are going to benefit on the internet and elsewhere as the word begins to spread. So I really want to thank you, and I look forward to your coming on again with us as events develop.
Anytime, Alfred, anytime. Could I finish this with a prayer?
Sure, please.
Yeah. It's like I have this prayer that my Raja Yoga teacher, Nelani Chelram, that is yoga for the mind, not for the body. She has this prayer, and I absolutely love it. It goes like this. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May everyone, and especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. Victory to that light. We all need to heal. They need to heal as well. Otherwise, this madness will just continue. So it's not enough for us just to chop off their heads and just, that will just continue the madness. We really need to transcend this thing in a non-violent but totally fearless way. And anything I can do, I'm right there.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Alfred.
Good. Thank you very much, and until we speak again.
Until we speak again.